We're live.
Right.
All right. Welcome, guys, to the podcast. We are here. We are here. We are here. We're here. We're excited about being here tonight. We are looking forward to seeing you guys tonight. We got a great podcast for you. I hope you're ready. Y'all know how we do. We get it in. We talk about things that need to be discussed, especially in our Black community. However, we know that everyone can take something away from each and every podcast. So we are just excited about what God is doing with us as a couple. So, Curtis, how you doing?
I am well. How about you?
I am well. I am well. And listen, today's podcast, guys, is brought to you by Meriwether Enterprises. That's our first word. Because this mind, this great mind that is sitting right here to my left, God always gives him insight when things are happening in our economy, our world, when it comes to business strategies. God has literally gifted this mind. And so tonight, we're going to be digging into just basic economics. And, I think sometimes we take it for granted that everybody understands what's happening and what's going on when we see the gas prices rising, when we see food prices rising, when we just everything is going up. And now they are telling us, they meaning our government, is telling us that we are in the middle of a full blown recession.
No, your government not telling you there's a recession. They telling you
It's complicated, right? Because
it doesn't fit the narrative. We're going into the midterms. This next season happen. So no political party wants to have a recession on their watch. So you're watching our government in the real time scramble to give you a new definition of what the recession is. Now the definition of recession, what it is for as long as I can remember. But now
mhm,
we have to conveniently redefine it because it doesn't fit into the political narrative. And there's an election coming up in November called midterm. So some of your favorite elected officials have probably already went through their primary or getting ready to go through their primary, and they want to make sure, Democrats are of course in power right now, so they want to make sure that there's no negative press that will hinder the election outcome in November.
okay, so we need you back to our video flag.
Oh, man, I didn't say anything bad.
We know how this goes, guys. We know how this goes. So let me go ahead and just plug in my commercials real quick before we get started on talking on this topic. Why is bacon $11? I
See,
just
you didn't believe me, y'all.
wait. First of all, we don't see your mic, so you look like you're talking, but we don't see your mic. But no, I just want to get this out the way. So listen, guys, if you are joining us for our live stream podcast on Facebook or on YouTube, please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and also make sure that you guys are sharing this live right now. Listen, guys, we are on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. So make sure that you guys are, supporting what we're doing. We got to stick together in these times, y'all. Listen, got a black couple up here educating the world on world events, what's going on. Y'all already know we are going to bring things from a biblical perspective because we are Christians, aka believers, and we know that we can't operate in this life, in this world, without Jesus, God, and Holy Spirit all wrapped in one. So here we are. We are bringing you guys this information tonight. We want to talk about the economy. We want to talk about some history and where our country has come from, where we are today. And we want to bring you some biblical perspective because guess what, guys? everything that happens has already happened before. What they say, ain't nothing new under the sun. Right. Nothing's new under the sun, guys. So listen, make sure you are sharing this podcast with someone that you might have been having conversations with. Share with a family member, a friend, a husband, a wife, a significant other,
Especially the
whatever.
entrepreneurs.
Especially the entrepreneurs.
Because the entrepreneurs must know what's happening in the economy. This is gonna determine what's gonna be the price of your raw material. Hopefully, you're not pulling prices out of just thin air because your competitors are picking prices, but you understand what goes into a pricing structure. If I don't come here to talk about that, but your pricing is composed of the direct costs, the overhead, G&A, your fringe, and your profit. So if you don't understand how to construct a cost or construct a price, you could be undervaluing your business and you could be pricing your business in the red unknowingly because you have not understood how to derive true pricing value. So it is extremely important, especially for my entrepreneurs that may be watching either the product space or the service space, because this definitely has economic implications.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is definitely. So let's go ahead on and jump into this, Curtis, because I feel like you have a lot to share and a lot to break down. And we are here to listen and learn. And I'm probably going to ask, the questions that everybody wants to know, guys. So listen, if you want to ask a question pertaining to what we are talking about today, we definitely want to talk about like why the gas prices are high, like, what is going on, break this thing down. If you have questions, please drop them in the chat. We can see your questions. We are on a couple of devices here, so we definitely can see what is going on. Hey, Miss Evie, how you doing?
How you
I
doing,
see you
lady?
guys.
Absolutely.
So yeah, let's go ahead on and get into this. I think it would be good to break down. We know that there's been a change in definition, but break down what the recession, the word recession actually means, and then kind of give us some background on just the economy.
Okay, no, that's cool. Um, so just want to kind of talk about the economy today. If you watch the news, first of all, these things did not just happen. A series of events came into play that the economy in the Number one of the big factors is all of the money. So, if you know anything about the Federal Reserve, the economy, first of all, you know that the Federal Reserve is not federal at all. It is a collection of private banks. Bank of America. Uh, every country has a national bank. The national bank in the United States is the Bank of America. Now, I know most of our audiences are in the U.S. or considered West. So, the national bank of the U.S. is Bank of America. Hence the name, Bank of America. Now, Bank of America was not its original name; it was went through a couple of different permutations. But if you know anything about the Federal Reserve, there was a great book that Edward Christie wrote talking about the 1913 Act, basically how the Federal Reserve came into fruition. I'm not going to talk about that today. It's been a whole series of conversations on the Federal Reserve. But the reason why I bring it up is federal governments have the ability to print money. Now, when I say print money, I literally mean print money.
So we saw that when everybody was getting stimulus.
Right. That money literally was printed out of thin air. You say, well, how can you print money out of thin air? Let's go on a brief history lesson. In 1971, we came off of the gold standard. What does that mean? In 71, you could actually take your dollar instrument, take a US dollar, and you could trade it for so much gold. When we came off of the gold standard, our money was no longer backed by anything. So prior to 71, under the Nixon administration, for all of the money that was printed, there was so much gold in reserve. When we came off the gold standard, there was nothing to back the currency. So the only reason why our money in the United States, or any other country for that matter, the only reason why it has value is because people have trust in the faith and credit of, in this country, the United States. If you're in Africa, maybe Ghana or Kenya, or wherever you are, in the UK, all of the money in the world is funny money. It is not backed by anything. If the people no longer trust that money, that that monetary system fails. Let me give you a couple examples. Georgia, I think in the mid 2000s, late 2010, well between 2006 and 2012, they woke up and their money was worth $0. They had what they call a bail in. We know a bailout because back in 2008, when the housing crisis crashed, and did a whole bunch of movies were made talking about too big to fail, and basically the federal government went to the rescue to prop the economy. That was a bail out. Federal government pushed money into these businesses called TARP and all these other names to basically prop the economy. Now, something happened that you may not be aware of. After the housing crisis of 2008, the government in legislation said they're not doing any more bailouts. Your money that's in your bank, if that bank fails, the first thing they can take are your deposits. They call that a bail in. You say this again. The banks, because the federal government learned a lot of big lessons during the last financial crisis of 2008, when the economy almost came off the edge, came very close to crash. I mean, I'm talking about a cataclysmic crash with global implications. When that happens, the federal government has provisions for bail in. We bailed out the financial crisis. Now they have bail in, which means if your money's in Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, pick your favorite bank. If that bank goes under, the very first thing they're going to do is grab the receipt on deposit. And I know you never heard this in school before. That don't mean it's not true. So they can bail in. Now, I'm gonna give you a very fundamental thing. When you look at your bank statement and you look at, say you go say you go to Walmart or Public Target. You go to Target and you swipe your card and you look at your deduction, whether it's debit or credit. What you're seeing is the bank's representation of that transaction. Your money is a liability to them. Okay? They take your money, they just like any other loan, they take deposits and they lend out that money in hopes of making additional money. Okay? So in the event of and of course if you've got a loan, then of course, you go buy a house belongs to the bank, you pay it off until you pay off the loan from the bank. You guys get this basic finance or accounting. So with the bail-in provision, your deposit, your banking account, your savings, your mutual fund, if you have it at a traditional bank, that's the first thing that the bank can do to get well if they find themselves sick. As a reason, I know you're like, why is he talking about this? All of the banks, all of them are underfunded. All of the banks, read my lips, are underfunded. Many of them fail. Don't believe me? Go listen to the Jamie Dimon's recent report of J.P. Morgan. And J.P. Morgan was one of the ones who outperformed many. They failed the stress test. A stress test is in the event that finances have a hiccup. Is this financial institution strong enough to weather the storm? Just like in your business. If you have a bad quarter, or not even your business, in your family, you have a bad quarter, somebody loses their job, how long can you survive before things get tested? So the bank went through stress testing, and many of them failed. So I start off this whole conversation talking about bail-ins versus bail-ins. Like, where is it going? Because if the bank fails, your deposits are the first thing they're going to use to make the bank whole. This is not What I'm telling you is not unique. This happened in Georgia. I'm talking about not the state of Georgia, because I know most of us thinking about the United States. I'm talking about the country of Georgia. Those people went to bed with a certain amount of money in their bank account. They had a banking holiday, meaning the bank did not open, and their money that they thought they had was no longer there. Let that sink in. And I don't want people to think that that's another country. No, I just told you that they failed the stress test. J.P. Morgan, Jamie Dimon, I use him. He's considered one of the most influential bankers in the world. He has been very adamant about talking about the economy. Now, for those who may have seen the title and clicked on here, me and Ken had a debate. He's like, wow, where's the $11 bacon? I went on Amazon and looked at Coleman. And if you go to Amazon, you'll see that in some instances they have discounted the price for $10. Other places you look, you'll see $10.99. And they want you to buy from them versus buying from the grocery store so they can save some money and cut the middleman out. How much was the bacon can?
Yeah, it was like
I think this is $11.
right. Okay. All right. So we can also give another example that we actually went to the store with like DJs, right? We were in the aisle and we were going for the egg, and there was no eggs, and then the eggs the eggs we normally buy, which was like the Eggland Best,
Right.
and the Eggland Best was still at the best price, and then the other egg, your local farm egg, it was like 10.99 or 11. It was some weird number, and everybody was in the aisle. Everybody, it was
scratching their head, like
scratching their heads, and it was funny because it was all couples. So we're all standing there looking at the refrigerators, like, why are these eggs priced higher than the Eggland's Best?
Why
It
are
doesn't
the
make
local
sense.
farms? But now that I think about it, the local farms cost. See, when the price of oil and gas increases, it affects the supply. When you see oil and gas go up in price, everything else just went up in price as a result. Because you got to ship and move. If you're on a farm, you gotta run those tractors. If you're in a meat packing plant, you got to run those fillers. That stuff, it takes energy. So not to get into debate with the climate changes and all that good stuff. But here's my concern. My concern today, not to say we shouldn't be pursuing green energy or anything like that, but my concern is that the infrastructure in the United States today is not robust enough. Today, I ain't gonna say it won't be, but today it is not robust enough to be a green economy. And I'm gonna state something else. To run a Tesla takes more energy. And I know all my people say it's an electric car. It takes more energy than it takes to actually run a gas or electric. It takes more energy to run an electric vehicle than it does to power a gasoline vehicle. These are facts. These are facts. Go and watch the recent C-SPAN on the floor of Congress when Peter Buttigieg was asked this by the elected officials. They basically gave him the number. I'm not a solar guy. They talked about the kilowatt hours that it would take if everyone had one electric vehicle car. It was like 5 times the output. So all my point is that, and they also said in that conversation that the current electrical grid, again, these are not my words, I'm paraphrasing something you can go and actually look up yourself. The electrical grid today, and we won't, is not currently robust enough if everyone switched over to electric today. These are facts. These are facts. These are not my opinions. Everything that I just said can be verified and documented. Going back to the grocery store, when the price to ship goods goes up, it will indirectly or directly, depending on your position, the price is going to go up. The price is going to go up. Now, the only way around that is through things like future contracts, which is what a lot of your airlines have. The airlines typically they're smart. Southwest is one of the kingmakers of this. They go and they set contracts for months or maybe years in advance. They lock their price of oil, of gas. And of course, airplanes don't use the same type of fuel as cars. They use lithium too. But my point here is those are things that businesses do to manage the risk of running their operations. When we started this conversation, we were talking about how important it is, whether you're a consumer, but especially for my entrepreneurs, to understand where prices are moving so that they can price the goods and services accordingly. You and I have a mutual friend, and they sold their restaurant about 6 months ago. And a lot of restaurants, to avoid losing customers, have not raised their prices because if they raise their price, so a lot of your restaurants are taking L.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, well, if the supply chain is crazy and it's costing them more to get what they need, then
Right.
they're losing money.
Losing money. And our mutual friend basically said, we knew we were losing money, but we didn't want to shock our customers. And so he went on to tell me, he was in the restaurant business. He went on to tell me that that is what many restaurant owners are doing right now to maintain their customer base. But, for those who know anything about the food business, they don't make their money off the food. They make their money off the drink. When you get the raspberry lemonade at Maggiano's, or if you're getting alcohol, that's where they make their money. The margins are very thin in the actual food.
Mm.
They're very thin in the food. But we started this conversation, and let me just give a very brief history lesson. If you look at, they say right now we're in the fourth turning. Now, when I heard this term, to be honest, I had no clue what it was. But everyone was running with it. Some of the podcasting platforms that I listen to information from, information being like learning. And so they kept talking about this fourth turning. Well, if you look at history, they have something called 80-year block. Okay? Now, in that 80-year block, they break them into 20-year sections. Okay? And in those sections, they look every 20 years, which is basically a generation. They say, okay, 20-year blocks, their block, not the exact size, we have these patterns. So the first 20 years, if we're looking at us, 1946 to 1964, was considered the hot. It's when things are new, a lot of excitement in the air. This is the baby boom generation. So if you're in that generation, that you were in the high period if you were born between 46 and 64. That is the high. The second 20 years, and then we got 40 years total, is the awakening period. This is when you had people like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X on the ground marching and protesting. This was an awakening. It was the enlightenment. Um, this is when a Generation X was born. So we're talking 64 to 84, the Generation X period. Then you have the unraveling period. So now remember we got a historical block of 80 years. First turning was considered high. And if we're looking at the US, that was 46 to 64, 1946 to 64. Then your second 20-year block, called the awakening period, that was 1964 to 84. The Generation X was born. Now, then you went through the unraveling period. That was 20 years. That was 1984 to 2008. We all remember what happened in that period. Listen, this is where stuff starts coming in. We had 9/11 in the unraveling period, 2001. And then we had the housing crisis of 2008. They consider this the unraveling period, 2020. And then now, the historians, we're in the crisis period, 2008 and to 2028. Now, when I talk about these sections, they say they're in 20-year blocks, you may see a little bit of variability plus or minus. But they did this to give us the framework. Now we're in the crisis period. Now we're at all-time high inflation. It's the highest it's been very, very long time. GDP has went through 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth.
Right.
Meaning the economy went back. Now, why is this period so important? Why are they talking about it? This is the precedent of runaway unemployment. already seen announcements from people like Amazon, Apple, where they're laying people off. I think Bezos got up and said they had overhired previously, so they're laying off tons of people. I remember, call it around about 2013, when I saw the push for places like McDonald's. Uh, well, let's go back. This conversation about minimum wage going to $15 an hour is not a new. I'm not getting into a public debate about what's the fair price of living. That's not the purpose of the conversation. I believe everyone should be able to place themselves in a position to get. Okay? Um, we pay our employees more than we pay. But that aside, I remember when this conversation hit the scene, I was talking to an elected official at the state level. This was 2013, 2014. And minimum wage is still $7. And this politician was telling me, it's unbearable. These companies are making all this money, and they should be paying more. And I told him, I said, I don't disagree with you. I told him, what we do as an organization and what we're doing. But I said, if you start trying to um, mandate a minimum wage, the companies are going to innovate. And those was right around the time that McDonald's started experimenting with basically these robotic operated stores. Go to a McDonald's in Atlanta. I don't know what city you might be. You don't need but a handful of people on this.
Yeah, it's like they have one
Kiosk,
cashier, but that cashier is working with other stuff at the same
right,
time. And yeah, they want you to walk in the kiosk or pre-order before you get to the drive-thru,
right.
which I think is awesome.
This is one of the first companies to do this. You remember they had the little the machine that would fill up your. I don't person, but I'm intrigued by their innovation. Remember they had the tray where
The drink
with a
machine.
drink machine where they would just basically computer operated. It would fill up the machine and rotate and put the next drink in rotation. And I told him, I said, these are the things these companies are working on. I said, now the mom and pop may not be able to afford to do these things, but big business will be. And now we're seeing now they got gas stations where you can literally go into the gas station, not talk to anyone, go to a self checkout station and order your gas while you order your snack at the snack bar. You can order your gas from the pump. I've been in these stores. There's two people working. I remember going out to Seattle back, man, it was before the pandemic. Must have been around 2019. And I remember going to my first Amazon Go store. Now, if you don't know anything about these Amazon
So
Go
weird.
stores, you go into the Amazon Go and you pick up these things. You can have, of course, an Amazon account. You pick up most of us Amazon Prime. But you go in the store, and when you pick it up, the sensors on the device know that it has left the shelf and is in your cart. And when you walk out the store, it just does the calculation and pulls the money off your cart. This is Seattle. I had to go see this when I was there. You go in the store, there's only real people in the store are your stockers. There may be one or two people running the whole store. And then everyone else is there to stock and make sure all of the stuff is on the shelves and clean. So, I mean, completely revolutionized this whole grocery store model.
Correct. And there's robots now that deliver food and
Right.
all kinds of stuff
The
now.
drones in certain cities, if you're in certain cities, the Amazon truck ain't coming to you. It's a drone. Whoop, drop it off at your door. Depending on, like I said, this is a major city. But what's my point? My point in this is as the economy gets worse, companies who have capital are going to innovate. They say what mother is the necessity of invention. Mother's necessity. So these companies who have an incentive to maintain their profit margin, they're coming up with ways to not have to rely on human capital. Human capital. Um, Robots don't complain about coming to work. They don't ask for no vacations. They don't need no. They don't need no smoke and no coffee break. You know what I'm saying? So, but I think a lot of times the entrepreneurship community, and I'm talking typically small business, people are very well aware, and the political economy, you're not always aware of the ramifications of these actions. Now, I went and I talked about the 4 terms. Now, this pattern has been replicated throughout history. You can go back the last 100 years. This model has maintained. You got your high, your awakening, your unraveling, and your crisis. We are in the crisis period. Now, I talked about the 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. Now, if you've been watching the news, you have been watching the federal government, the White House press secretary, you have been seeing her scramble week after week, day after day, because they don't want this to
But she's been scrambling from the beginning.
well,
You can't. You ask a basic question. She's scrambling.
well, politics is all about the spin game anyway. We got to spin it in such a way where it is favorable for the whatever party is in power. This is never going to go away. Me and were watching a political movie this was like a couple of days ago, and you had both sides. You had the young lady who was a political consultant, she was a Republican. You had the political consultant who was male for the Democrats, and they were basically telling the cameras, we lie to you, but it's our job in the movie. We lie to you, but it's our job to just throw you off base. And the more we throw you off base, you don't really believe this what you do. It's basically what they were saying in the movie. It was a comedy, but there was a lot of truth in the things that they were saying.
Yeah.
But in the first quarter, we had negative. That means that we didn't even break positive. We had negative 1.6% real GDP growth. I'm going to go back to high school. GDP is the gross domestic product. It's the representation of the imports and exports, that delta that comes out. Now, the goal for any country is to make sure we have more exports than imports. Exports means we're selling to other people. Imports mean we're buying. So based on this, there was more inflow in and less exporting out. We were doing more purchasing than we were doing selling. This is bad for a country. This is bad for a business. This is bad for your own house. If there's more going out than there's coming in, that's a problem. So we're having the same problem at a national level. Okay. So where did I get these numbers? This came from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, BEA. This is under the Department of Commerce. So I didn't just pull these numbers out the sky. That was first quarter. First quarter is January through March. We had negative 1.6 in growth. Now, that may sound like a minuscule number, but when your GDP, your net worth as a household is $20 trillion plus, a lot more. 1% of $20 trillion is a lot. So we're talking almost negative 2%. Okay, I want to just put this in context. Now, that was January through March. Second quarter, we had negative, again, another negative 0.9%. It's better than first quarter, but it's still showing contraction. There's no substantial growth in the economy. Okay, so that second quarter is April, May, June. Okay, so these numbers just came out. They normally report these numbers in arrears. So June ended, they reported these numbers. Like the first quarter ends in March, they report the numbers later. Now, they are trying to redefine what a recession means. Now, since I've been in high school, college, and a PhD program, it has always been 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. So we had 2 months, 6 months, 6 months, 3 and 3, 6 months in the struggle. 6 months in the struggle, and you're negative. That's not good. Most households can't do 6 months of struggle. What is it, Dave Ramsey or maybe Susie Orman would tell people you need to have 6 months emergency fund. So basically, it's showing me you don't have 6 months of emergency fund as the nation. And I'm oversimplifying on purpose, but I want to make it. I want to make it tangible. People can touch it. Now, here's a new definition. I seen this today. Investopedia updated their definition of recession. And it's way more convoluted than
I want to hear
the
this.
two quarters of negative GDP. So they say the economists, including those at the National Bureau of Economic Research, from the Department of Commerce, which dates U.S. business cycle, the whole mouthful right there by itself, defines recession as an economic contraction starting at the peak of the expansion that preceded it and ending at a low point of the ensuing downturn. Now, that means if you look at it as a cycle at this peak, then somewhere down here, if it had, it's convoluted on purpose because two quarters of negative GDP growth, that's too easy to get your arms around. And now you can say, hey, Mr. Government, you're not doing a good job of managing the economy of the country. Now, this has been the definition for as long as I can remember. But now Investopedia and many others are coming up with new definitions of recession. You even heard our Federal Reserve chairman, you heard her come out, Janet Yellen, and say, well, it's complicated. Now, a few weeks ago, she was talking about the two periods of negative GDP growth, but now all of a sudden, it's complicated.
Right.
That's our politics. That's our politics. But the whole purpose of having this conversation tonight is, yes, well, let's talk about the economy. I talked about how did the economy heat up, and it wasn't just one thing. It was the excessive money printing by, we talked about the Federal Reserve. They have the ability to print money just like that. And just like in economics, supply and demand. If you have more of something, the value of it goes down. If you have less of it, the value goes up. Think about those Beyonce tickets. There's only a few tickets. That's why Beyonce can charge $350 and up per ticket because there's only a finite amount of tickets. If Beyonce was doing concerts all the time and there was an infinite supply of Beyonce tickets, the price would fall. So this is supply and demand. Same thing in the economy. When there's more dollars in circulation, the price goes down. When there are less, the price goes up. What the Federal Reserve does is regulate the economy. How do they do that? By expanding and contracting the market. Now, we try to bring this home so you understand what's happening here. When you go out and you try to buy a new car or motorcycle, uh, home, there will be times based on the state of the economy, it will be easier or harder to get a loan, especially by commercial real estate people. So by commercial real estate people, listen up. When the market crashes, and it's going to crash within the next 18 to 24 months, my own personal prediction. If you have a very solid credit history, you're going to clean up. Now, right now, because there's so much money in the economy, the federal government is starting to squeeze. You're starting to see the federal funds rate, which is the overnight bank to bank transfer, and you're seeing the interest rate rise. They're signaling to the market we're getting ready to contract the flow. So one of the ways they contract, they start making it, contract, they're making it harder to get loans. You'll start seeing how you'll see it one period of time, you'll see the credit score. You got a 720, you can get a loan. You'll see another time of period when the economy, say, may be in a better space, that 620 can get a loan. Now, they're going to pay a higher interest rate because of the credit rating, if the credit rating is not at a certain point. But they're going to open and close that gap to try to keep the economy on track. So what you're getting ready to see, you're getting ready to see the money tightening from a lending, borrowing perspective. So people who were easier to get homes 3 years ago, they're going to have challenges if they find themselves trying to buy another home and their credit may not be where it needs to be. And they're going to send, the Federal Reserve is going to send a signal. And if I got any bankers up there, they can verify what I'm saying. They're going to send a signal to the lenders to raise the watermark in terms of requirements. I remember in the housing crisis, people were getting loans off what they call stated income before the market grew up. Meaning you didn't even have to show proof of your income. You could just tell the lender, I make $565,000 a year. And they just said, okay, that's what you make. And they literally, and then they took that and they wrote the paperwork up, and you showed some stuff prove that you are who you say you were, and you got your loan. Now, because your income was considered stated, they didn't verify that you made because they didn't verify that you may have paid a premium on the interest rate, and they may even said you don't even need a down payment. You don't even need a down payment because the money, the economy was in a better space. This was before the housing crisis. After the housing crisis, you couldn't do stated loans anymore. You had to prove what you made. They want tax returns. They want bank statements. Your credit need to be this, and you need a down deposit. You need a down payment of 20% or 3%, 5%, or whatever your banking institution parameters. What you were witnessing, you might not have realized, what you were witnessing was the loosening and tightening of credit. You're going to get ready to see the same thing here. That's why it's important to understand the economic indicators. If you're a business owner, if you have a family, even if you're single, if you're able to see the economic headwind, you can prepare in advance. So if you saw 2 years ago an economic correction coming, you would have got the financing in place for your business then, knowing that you didn't need it money. But I'm gonna use discipline because I know tough days are coming, and it's better to get money when you don't need it versus try to get it when you need it. They ain't gonna give it. The bank can sense desperation. So as we better understand the economy, we can make better financial decisions for our families, for our businesses, and any other organizations that we may serve. So this has both an individual housing implication for you and your house, as well as for my business owners. You want to go get the building before the economy is bad. You want to make sure you have more reserves than you need before it gets bad. Because when you need it, they're not going to give it to you. But if I can kind of see or read the tea leaves, I can better position my family. I can better position my business to ride the ebb and flow. It's not that your competitors are smarter than you. They just plan. They watch Bloomberg. They looked at that. They looked at Capital IQ. They looked at these different reports to figure out how do I need to move as a as a as a family person, as a single person, as an investor, as an entrepreneur. These things matter. And I think far too many people who look like me are not paying attention. So, always like to bring this thing home. I'm reminded of the story of Joseph. Great example. Joseph had a dream. You can find the whole story of Joseph in Genesis 37 to 50. Joseph had a dream, and he talked about how he saw his fathers and mothers and all the people bowing down to him. Let's fast forward. Joseph goes through a crazy time, finds himself in prison, gets raised up in prison and head of Potiphar's house. Potiphar's wife lies on Joseph, throws Joseph back in prison. Joseph meets two people, prophesy him, tell him what he believed God telling them to do for their life. And then they forget about Joseph again. Joseph got a prophecy from God. It was about 19, 20 years before what Joseph saw in the dream actually manifested in his life. But if we fast forward to Genesis 41, Pharaoh had a dream. And no one, all the wise men in Pharaoh's council, could not interpret the dream. So they finally, somebody told Pharaoh, bringing it matter, told Pharaoh about this boy that was in prison. Hey, remember you threw me in prison. I met this guy named Joseph. He told me what was going to happen to me, and I forgot about it. And he told me about this dream, and nobody in the king's court can tell us what this dream means. So go find Joseph. Joseph comes and tells Pharaoh what the dream is. And you can go read it. Genesis 41, 26 to 32. Joseph basically told Pharaoh, hey, you're going to have 7 good years and 7 bad. From the 7 good years, store up all your bread. We're going to sell it back to the people. And in the 7 bad years, if they ain't got, they don't have any money, they can come up with basically slaves to king. He's like, cool. And since you gave me the plan, I'm going to put you in charge. That's basically what happened. Long story short, Joseph's family comes back and, did all this bad stuff to him. Joseph is eating good, living good for quite some time now. Joseph don't look like himself. His brothers don't even remember what Joseph looked like. He's Now, what's the moral of this story? Even back in the Bible, they had economic recession. Let me say this, something that you may not have known. The government is the one who creates the enterprise. I said it. The federal government. If you Democrat or Republican, independent, libertarian, doesn't matter to me. Your federal government creates the boom and the bust. Read the works of people like Adam Smith. Read the works of people like Hayek. Read the works of Ludwig and Mises. Read whoever you want to read. Read Joe Salerno, Maury Rothbard. Pick your favorite economist. Roger Krugman from New York Times. There's a lot more people I just named who would agree with that. The government is the one who creates the boom and the bust. They're the ones who do that. But so, what is your takeaway? Your takeaway, that's you right now. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you, it is going to get worse. The economists are saying, now this what I'm about to say don't mean this is going to happen. What I am saying is they are saying this, that bread may be $11 loaf. Now, because it's a prediction does not mean it's going to come true.
Hey, dude, I'm about to be making my own bread. Listen, I already had this conversation with my sister. Like, teach me how to make the bread, yo, because I don't have time. It's time to not spend. It is time to save. It is time to store. It is time to make sure we replenish and go through what we have and what we don't have and start stocking up. Because I do feel like necessities, this is my own opinion, I do feel like necessities like the paper, toilet tissue, and paper towels. Y'all remember what happened when we was going through the sea? I mean, you couldn't, everything
Be the C. I like be the C.
we
Yeah.
was going through the sea.
Right.
And it was just like, we couldn't find Lysol spray, wipes, nothing. It was like, calling this, you got some Lysol spray? I mean, it was ridiculous. Remember the cans of Lysol went to like $12.
But you know what's crazy this time is it won't be that there's shortage. Problem's going to be can you afford to see in that
Well,
situation.
I can get with that.
In that situation, we had the pandemic that you was referring to, and because of fear, people were just buying up toilet paper, Lysol, all of this stuff. This time, there's gonna be stuff on the shelf. Now, I recognize supply chain as well. I mean, we all know that. But all things being equal, there will be supply when you have the money to buy it.
Mm.
There's bacon in the store right now. So Keenan, $11 bacon. Bacon's in the store. That's the new problem. See, I ain't heard nobody say that. That's going to be the new problem. See, many people are at the grocery store right now negotiating things that they would have normally thrown into their cart, and now having to negotiate. Well, I really need that Snicker bar.
And then this is also going to now affect the small businesses, like certain industries. It's going to affect them because people are going to start scaling back. Like, do I really need to get these services done? Do I really need to do this? Do I really need to buy that? And people are going to start just, you know what I'm saying? Like making decisions to balance, just like not go out again, going back to the city, staying at home because gas is too high. Again, being confined to our homes.
It's just the economic
And
lockdown.
then let's not forget, we have monkeypox out there now. We have some other illness. I can't remember the name of it. It's over in Africa now. I believe there's some cases here. We have all these other things still going on. So, I mean, what does that say for the state of the world?
Like, this is not the time to not have a financial plan. Now, I don't mean go out and get a financial plan, even though I'm not opposed to that. But I'm gonna say this: your financial planner needs to be better. They don't need to just have a certificate. and a sheet of paper for their financial planning, and they are no better off financially. So if you decide to go the financial planning route, which I'm not opposed to, they need to be substantially better off than you. And they need to have track record. And the things you need to be asking your financial planner is, what are the things that I do in a good economy versus bad? If they can't answer those kinds of questions, if they can't find safe investment for you, you need to revisit if that's the financial planner for you. And for those who have managed their money, okay, we got two people. We got folks who may not be in the best position financially. We got a lot of people who live
A lot of
paycheck to
people.
paycheck.
Talked to a pastor recently, and he was saying that they didn't realize that so many of their congregants were living paycheck to paycheck. So they started, putting on classes to teach them
Right.
how to invest their money and do different things or whatever.
You open the can, and I know who listens to us, and I'm going to say to those in our just black people, I need us to not be so. We are one of the smallest demographics. We make up between 13 and 16% of the population. Have you looked at it? We're not over 50, and yet we spend the most. I was thinking, me and Ken was talking about in other countries, other places like Dubai, they call us black gold, and that's why all the other ethnics come into our community and set up their business. We're gonna patronize. And what I'm saying is, let's spend less. I'm not telling you that if God has been good to you not to live your best life. I'm not saying that at all. But what I don't want to see, I don't want to see people had the means. You see, many people like me have had the resources to be better off, but because of some of the decisions that were made, some of the decisions that were made, some of the decisions that were made in times past, are not going to be prepared. But if we can give Gucci and Louis and Balenciaga and Da Vinci and Louboutin all this money, we should be able to do the things we can do to secure our family. That's the real. I mean, that's the number that said we spent $1.7 trillion last year. $1.7 trillion, but yet we are the brokest economic class in society.
We make up the smaller portion.
We make up the how is the smallest ethnic group spend more money than the majority? These are real numbers. You can look them up. 1.7, but we're not better off financially. So you can't tell me that we don't have the power, the ability, and the potential to be in a better place. Not spending $1.7 trillion. That is a whole GDP of most countries. That's more GDP than most of the undeveloped world. And we make up 13% of the population. That economy is bigger than Kenya, a lot of African countries, and some European countries. $1.7 trillion, a lot of bread. So, not to get on this soapbox, but in these times, we have to come up with strategy. We have to come up with strategy. I'm not against faith. I'm not against the lead that I received. I'm not against any of that. But we have to come up with strategy. What the king did in the Bible, he did not profess to be a follower of Jesus Christ. He needed strategy. So this time, put you some strategy. Don't trust me. It's going to get bad. It's going to get bad. I talked at the beginning of this conversation. We talked about the 80-year economic block. We talked about we're in the fourth country. This is the season of crisis. Started in 2008, all the way to 2028, may even be a little beyond. And I'm gonna tell you this crisis is going to be worse than the housing crisis of 2008. See, really and truly, we didn't really do what we should have done as a country to make sure that we had really dealt with it. We kicked the can down the road. And here we are again. So this crash is going to be magnitude worse than the first. If you thought 2008 was bad, and you seeing some of this, y'all seen what happened in New York a couple weeks ago? Maybe they don't know what I'm talking about. With,
No, with the
with
pastor that got
Bishop
run over.
Whitehead. Now, I'm not getting into all of whether that was staged or not. What I am going to say is this.
Mhm.
As the economy gets worse, crime increases. Because people start getting desperate. People start going, you get a person who's desperate and they're trying to feed their family, they will do
The church is
anything.
where people supposed to come from to get help.
And that's it. I wasn't there. I just seen it on the news, just like many of you. So I don't know all of the conditions. But what I am saying is that when people get desperate, they do desperate things. So I want to make sure all of our listeners are thinking about the economy and coming up with a plan. Whether that means you go and you pray and ask God for wisdom, whether that's you go find people who are smarter than you and help and ask them to help you come up with a plan. For those who have money, say you manage your money in times past, and you've been a good steward, you're gonna get richer. Because these are the times when you buy up assets. The real estate market is getting ready to go on sale. The stock market is on sale. The crypto market is on sale. So for those who have planned previously, you buy up the dip. See, everyone talks about buying low, selling high, but most people don't actually do it in practice. The moment that the thing drops, they sell it. And when it's at an all-time high, they're buying it. So most people do not do what they say. So now that the market is getting ready to come to a correction, and it's already correcting, you're seeing it. You're seeing inflation up, you're seeing asset prices down. For those who have been sitting in cash, we call it an investment. I have been sitting in cash and I'm not actively investing. This is the time where it ain't all the way down yet. You give it some more time. This is where you go on a buying spree. Apartment buildings are going to be cheap. Gold is going to be cheap. Commodities are going to be cheap. Stocks, um, no bonds. Stocks are going to be cheap. This is when you buy those assets based on their intrinsic value.
You're not saying today, but you're saying as
I'm
it keeps
saying
going
getting
down.
in position. Yeah.
Okay,
We
getting
ain't
in
get to the
position.
bottom yet.
Okay,
Now,
all right.
now, if your bread is long and you want to go now, right now, you get crypto. Crypto is down. I remember what back 6 months ago, crypto Bitcoin was up to $40,000 a coin. You could buy crypto now, Bitcoin at $20,000 a coin. Now, you ain't got to spend the whole 20,000, but you can buy increments of it right now. So these are the time when the next round of millionaires and billionaires are made. I don't want to give this doom and gloom message because those people who have managed their money, this is peak time for you. 2008, when the housing crisis, people losing their houses, you had more millionaires and billionaires birthed in crisis, but they were ready. Same thing. You got people right now waiting. I've been waiting on this. We started a whole real estate fund, just got approved by the SEC. You'll be hearing about it. We are taking investment, but we're placing ourselves in a position to buy as much real estate as possible in the next 24 to 36 months. We're in position. So these are the times where you've done what you should have done in the past. This is where you will have a monumental increase in net worth and wealth. But for those who are not prepared, now, whether you prepared or whether you haven't, I do believe that Jesus be the way maker. So he can give you a way of escape. He can. Ask him to stretch. Because I'm reminded of when they were walking through the wilderness for the news and months. They were never intended to do that. They But when they were, the Bible says that their shoes grew with it.
Right.
Their clothes grew with it. So you remember when some of the people left Israel, they might have been kids, but your garments grew with you. And then I'm reminded of the woman with the
That's
I'm
supernatural.
reminded of the woman with the oil. She went to the man of God. She went to someone with some wisdom. I don't want to use that. She went to someone with wisdom. All people who call themselves people with God. She found someone with
I
wisdom,
feel like
with Elijah. She found someone with wisdom who had a solution. And she took what she had. He showed her through the power of God how to multiply what she had. So,
created a whole business.
right. So it doesn't mean that because you have maybe mismanaged your finances in time past, that there's important that there is. But we shouldn't be in a place where we're having to live by miracle. God is the God of miracle, but a miracle is a result of failed planning. We're talking about financial. It's a result of failed planning. But did you really learn? Did you really learn the lesson you need to learn to prevent this from happening again? God wants us to live off of consistency and use wisdom, and He'll give us a miracle. But sometimes we ask Him for miracles because we mismanaged our previous season.
That is true.
We mismanaged the previous season. So now, no, Lord, I need a miracle. That should not be the life of the believer. Shouldn't be. But unfortunately, it is. Unfortunately, it is. And it's not that God can do nothing. It's not that God can't automatically, supernaturally put money in your bank account. I've heard those things happen. But that is not going to happen for the mass. I don't believe. And God, can He? Yes. But we all know that money is amplified. And so, we prosper in accordance with our soul prosper. So show me an undeveloped soul, I will show you an undeveloped faith. You show me a developed soul, I will show you a emergent or currently strong bank account. But the Bible ain't no lie. I prosper in accordance with my soul prosper. It didn't say my tithes and offerings. Now again, I am not against tithes and offerings. You do what you need to do. But what I am saying is that could it be that the windows of heaven did pour out on you, but you mismanaged those seasons? Hmm. You just say the Bible's true. I believe it to be. God gave you the over and above exceedingly. You got the lawsuit settlement. You had the miraculous money that you wouldn't anticipate. You got the inheritance that had been held up for 20 years, but then you mismanaged. Please,
Not on that.
I ain't even come on and talk about it. You mismanaged the season. See, I actually believe that the Bible is true. But see, y'all have been expecting because in our churches they've told us that, feed them, eat and eat. Which I believe. I believe it will. But when it showed up, did you do what you were supposed to do with it? And it doesn't always show up as money. The Bible talks about the windows of heaven. And I think far too many of us, wow, I'm not thinking here. Far too many of us are expecting money, and it could be the favor of God. Some of y'all, your prosperity is tied up in the business idea that you haven't moved forward for the last 5 years. And you asking God, bring down. He says, I gave it to you in that seed of an idea. In the seed of an idea is your multi-millionaire status that you won't move forward with. Because you're expecting somebody to just come and put some money in your hand. I'm not saying that can't happen, but at the end of the day, God wants you to God wants to partner with you in your faith. And if they gave you some money, then they're going to have to give you some money again. But if I show you how to fish versus giving you a fish, entrepreneur, you eat for a lifetime. But the reality is that if I give you what you need, and I don't show you how to get it for yourself, you're gonna need a handout again. You're gonna need a handout again because you haven't developed the tools, the wherewithal to navigate the process. Ebb and flow comes to us all. It's not what happens to us, it's how we respond to it. So we want the million flow. But we don't understand the difference between a tax accountant and a tax attorney yet, or why we even need one. But you want the million flow. It doesn't work that way. In my business classes that I teach, we talk about the power of the tax accountant and the tax attorney. Now you can't go down to H&R Block and get the $500 tax return for your business, um, and have a tax account. That's not how that works. A tax return costs me a few $1,000 not to get them done properly. But the tax accountant and the tax attorney are the ones who ensure that the returns, they've done all the due diligence. They look at the numbers, they verify, validate. And so if the IRS comes from me, they stand in the gap because their name is on the return that no, we did our due diligence and we can attest that these are right. So Mr. IRS should go back and we look at your. We have all of the substantiating evidence to substantiate why his return was what it was. Your job is to find you legally. You don't do tax evasion. You don't do embezzlement. But I want to legally pay the least amount of money that I'm supposed to pay. And that does not come from H&R Block. Doesn't. They're doing a bunch of generic returns. They're doing a bunch of generic returns. And their job is to maximize profit while minimizing liability for them. So some of the risks that they could take, they're not, because their job, they got a little max guard and you can pay extra $50. I'm gonna tell you right now, you ain't even gotta buy none of that. Because I'm gonna tell you right now that they are going to make sure that they stay on the right. They're not even going to take any gray area with them. And it's not that the things we're saying are illegal, but they want to avoid liability. So you're gonna have a very safe return. Which when you should have gotten back money, you're gonna pay. When you do get a return back, you're gonna get less than what you should have gotten. I'm talking mainly to my business. They got the write-off. They got the employees. They got the capital expenditure, call it capex. They got all of that. That person who goes to work every day, you are in the highest tax bracket, period. Especially my lawyers and my bank. You make over a certain amount of money, you're paying out the nose with tax. You got your W-2 employee. Who behind him is your solopreneur, one man shop. They pay taxes. So after the W-2, the solopreneur pays the most taxes after him. Next comes your business owner. And then the most coveted category is the investor. He pays the least because of all of the tax write-offs, the building, capital expenditures, the employee gains, as well as the losses. You can take those losses out for years. So your investor pays the least. But school, MBAs, I got one. Those programs teach you to be an employee. They don't teach you to be an entrepreneur. They don't teach you to be a business owner. So you pay the most in taxes. As we are working on this real estate, we just got approved by the SEC. There's a category called accredited and unaccredited investors. So um, if you have more than $300,000 as husband and wife and a net worth of $1 million, you can take on more complex investments without liability. So we're looking for accredited investors. Now, why is this important? Some of the opportunities to truly transform the family where it's based in how well you manage money. So say you and your wife don't make $300,000, but if your net worth is good, can still be an accredited investor because the federal government says for you to have accumulated this amount of worth and for you to make this amount of money, and it's an either or. Great if you got both. If you've done that, then you are savvy enough to do some of these investments. And you have the financial wherewithal that if it doesn't go well, you're gonna still be able to fight next. You're gonna survive. If you lose 100 grand, you're gonna be able to survive. You lose 50 grand, you're gonna be able to survive. That's why they put the financial cap at 300,000 as a couple, 200,000 if you're single, and that's why they put the net worth requirement because they're saying if you have these one of both of these, then you have learned something, and you can take this risk, fully understanding the ramifications of this investment you're getting, which is not always true. But the government had to draw a line. Unaccredited investors are those who make less than $300 and don't have the net worth of a million. Now, you may have some education, you might have an MBA, you might be considered a sophisticated investor, meaning you know what to do, you understand the risk, but yet you don't quite have the financial capacity. So in some instances, they can let you in there. But you can't not have any education and not have the net worth and capital required. But a sophisticated investor, I may not be there, but I'm on my way. Here's the things I've learned to prove that I'm savvy in the investing category. Those people can still invest. Those are not my rules. Those are the rules of the federal government. But I bring all that up because in this conversation about economics, it's those kind of conversations, that kind of stuff you need to be well versed in so that you can ride the ebb and flow of not only your personal life but also your investment. I honestly believe that you should invest in anything you're doing. You're gonna be in crypto. You in crypto because Junebug told you this was good. You need to understand before you put your money in that crypto account what you're doing. Start talking about wallets and factors and exchanges and all this stuff. What is a crack? That's an exchange. If you start looking like deer in headlights, ain't time. I know your uncle them may have flipped all these houses. They would back in the day flip my house. I know that was real popular back in the day. But if you don't understand about constructions and contracts and management, why not want to do that? The Bible says that a fool and his money will soon depart. So just understand what you're doing and understand that your money represents an expenditure of your time and effort. Most of us are exchanging time for money. If you're a business owner, hopefully you exchange other people's time for money, which is why you can create this multiplication effect. So instead of me working 40 hours a week, I got 40, 100, 400, 4,000, however big your business is. Those amount of people trading their time for money. And my job is to manage that effort and receive the fruit of the labor of them. Of course, we give people a fair wage for their time to take care of you. But, but as the master of the ship, and because you took the initial risk, you should be grateful. Um, Anything else you want to talk about? We've been on here for an hour and
No,
13 minutes.
no, I think if you, explained what was in a lot of people's minds and probably gave them more. So we definitely we are grateful for everything that's going on. So I'm sure people are probably gonna have to go back and watch it again, 'cause I think that was it was jam packed. That was a lot just to be able to digest. But just knowing what to do now at this point and understanding. I'm sure if you were listening to this, it was kind of like, okay, where am I in this category? You know what I'm saying? Am I the person that lives paycheck to paycheck and I don't know what to do to prepare for it getting bad? Am I going to be stuck on the government? Or am I the person that's kind of like in the middle that, I may have had a little bit stored up, or I may have some assets, I may have some things I can work with and you know, sell or what I'm saying, pull out of to be able to purchase what's going to become available on the market or what's going to be out here that's going to be like pennies on the dollar because that is definitely happening. It's something because um I think I was telling you this back in 2019 2019 that I saw that. I kind of 20 it was either 2019 or 2020. I saw that in the spirit that happened, and I remember the Lord telling me to tell my people to start planning to buy up and store up for what's coming. And I didn't really know what that was. And then a little bit later on down the line, I started having these dreams. And it was like people of God were buying big stuff. People were coming together in groups. This is what the dream that I had. People were coming together in groups that were Christians and believers and with pools of money and buying large quantities of property. It was like I saw people buying gas stations. I saw like masses of people coming together saying, "Hey, let's put our money together and let's buy this gas station. Let's buy these stores. Let's buy this. Let's buy this." And people just buying up all this stuff. And it was like the people of God were winning. That's what I saw in the dream. And so it was like I heard, and this is prophetic coming in. I heard it, and then you might be thinking you heard a voice talking to you. It was on the inside. It was in my knower. I was hearing God speak to my spirit in my own voice to me. And then after a while, I started getting the dream. And I think I released some of that in the women's conference last year. And who knew all this was
I mean, what you saw was private equity. That's private equity. People say, well, what is private equity? Private equity is when people take their resources and pull them together. It could be all cash. It could be cash and loan. They go buy up stuff. Whether it's real estate, whether that's stocks, you call it hedge fund, uh, or whether it's business. We would call that either venture capital if they're companies under a certain size, or the traditional term of private equity we use for a lower middle to a certain threshold. Companies that are not publicly traded, and even some of those companies that are publicly traded can be taken private. We take not all the stock up, take the company from being a publicly traded company to a privately owned company. All that I just mentioned falls under the realm of private equity. So that's what I mean. You would think that in order to do some of that, it's from a regulated standpoint. In order to do that in a regulated standpoint, there needs to be place. That's just a huge company. If you're going to do anything on a wide scale, those things are regulated. Trouble trying to help. Yeah, I believe with good intentions, trying to help the congregation invest, and because it was so many people and there were certain triggers that were set, they found themselves in found themselves facing jail time. They did, I think, unknowingly, they didn't know they were breaking the law. You can't just take money from people, and even though, you know, there's regulation around that. So there's a very familiar case I remember. There was a guy named Easton Taylor. Easton Taylor had this big thing. He was on the news. He was like the first, he was like a millionaire at 16, so that became like a thing. And he was going to a lot of churches back in the early 2000s, and he was raising money in the church, and he was buying investments. And I believe he had good intentions, right? But he didn't know he broke the law. You can't do that. And this happened to a few other pastors. Well intentioned. Some, if I call the name, some of them, this happened. This one was not a pastor. Um, and people went to jail.
but yeah, that's just what I saw, and I believe that it's very wise right now to pay attention to people who are in business and that know what they're talking about and can kind of see forecast, but I also believe that God always reveals things to his people before things happen in the world. He's always going to give us a warning beforehand. And I think right now it's time for us to just really, just be smart about what we're doing and what we're spending. how we're moving, how we're operating, who we're connecting to. Connections are big. Connect, make sure you're connected to the right people. And also, it's about community. Right now, I really see communities starting to come together to be of aid and assistance to each other. I see families that are going to start to come. It's crazy how crisis will bring people together. And I see that families are going to start coming together in ways of being just financially supporting one household to the next. I think it's going to be on a rotating scale and how families are doing that. And I think it would be extremely smart for people to start having family meetings. You know what I'm saying? Doing it big family, small family, it doesn't matter. I know we have adult children as well. So, starting having some of these meetings, if you got to do Zooms or, bring them into your home, start having some family meetings and say, hey guys, this is what's going on. These are some of the things that we're thinking to do to plan. And I think that we could possibly all come together. That way, as things trickle down, there's enough to share to go around for everybody. I don't think this is time to be one.
That's what they were doing with the
Go ahead and talk about it.
No, I'm just saying. What they were doing. That's why, you know, man, he's the man in the life. But that's why that was such a big deal. That's what they were doing. They didn't go to the church
Oh,
benevolent fund
right,
back then.
right,
They were meeting the needs of one another as community.
right,
That's what I call it. They were making sure everyone was good. And so though that couple, their name is right now, that couple had pledged that they were selling a piece of land and that they were going to give into basically this community pot. And then of course when the sale happened, they didn't, and then the Bible puts somebody fell dead, and they lied to the man.
they lied.
They lied,
Mhm,
and the guy was like, the apostle was like, "You not lie. It was your stuff.
mhm, mhm.
If you change, prayerfully, if you changed your mind, you had that right. But we came into this willingly, and this is what you said you were going to do." And one closing thought before we close. I know I said a lot tonight, but I want people to know that there's two mouths. And you can subscribe to whatever I call the Ramsey model, which is the one where you live below your means. Okay? And I call the other one the Robert T. Kennedy, which is where uh, I take my resources and I buy assets. I live off of assets, which is actually there's no right or wrong answer. You have to know that those are the two primary models. You meet either A, say I'm gonna live at a certain level, what I make, I'm gonna live less than that, model one. Or model two, I'm going to live within my means, but take my take my surplus and invest it. And ultimately you want to live off of the investment return. Now that does give you a degree of risk. Some people don't want. So if you're comfortable with the investment philosophy and strategy, do that. If you're not comfortable with the investment strategy, you have to live within your means to avoid finding yourself in debt. That's what I thought.
Correct. All right. Well, we wanted to thank you guys for joining us for another podcast. I know this one was a little like heavy, and I know it was different because this was like more educational than anything. I think it's real funny how people want to chime in for the gossip. People want to chime in for opinion. People want to chime in for things like that. That's what draws people's attention for what we need, the things that we need to be paying attention to. That's going to affect our livelihood, and that's going to give us strategies and things that come from knowledge and books, and just the compare contrast of the old and the new, and what's really going on here is the same thing that we experienced before. Some of us didn't really know what happened with some of the other crises, but now that we're in this, how do we withstand it? I think it's real funny how people they don't want to hear about that. They don't want to hear about why bacon is $11. But if we was up here talking about somebody, and we was up here giving our opinion on somebody else's situation, then everybody want to chime in and tune in for that. And I think that that is just that's crazy to me. But I also know how the algorithm works. And I know that when you start talking about things that they don't want you to talk about, and I'm saying they, I know who they are, they will not allow your things to circulate. So if you have been on this podcast and you've watched this broadcast tonight, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook, please share it with someone. Share the knowledge, share the information with other people. That way they can go back and watch this, when the replay is also available. I think it's key that we share information with other people and not take it for granted that everybody knows what's happening and what's going on. And everybody don't know how to think. And I say this to my kids all the time. I'm tired of thinking for everybody. But it's a real thing. I don't think it's ever going to stop. It's always going to have to be somebody out there that has to think ahead to bring information to the table to make you now think, and so that you can now make moves and prepare for what is to come. So thank you guys so much for joining us once again. This is Kurt and Tina, and we have these kitchen conversations, and we appreciate you guys watching. And hopefully, you guys will be back next week. Tune in. We are here on Tuesdays. Normally, we come on right at 7. Sometimes we have some technical difficulties. We might come in a little bit after 7 o'clock, but for the most part, this is where you can find us here on Facebook and also on YouTube. And thank you in advance for subscribing to our YouTube channel. Even if you're on Facebook, please go and subscribe to our YouTube channel, guys. We're trying to make some moves out here. And when this thing blow, y'all gonna be like, "Oh, I remember them from Facebook." And I'm speaking into the atmosphere. I'm speaking affirmations that you guys will see us, Kurt and Kina, as a brand grow, and also as ministers of the gospel of Jesus Christ. You guys will see us grow, and we will begin to help change lives and just God, we got to get back to salvation. When I start talking, I get preaching. We got to bring that back to the forefront. And everything that we're going through right now in this world, everybody needs salvation. So that is what we do, and that is who we are. So again, thank you guys so much.
Oh man.
All right. So we'll see you guys next week. Have an amazing week, and we will be praying for you all. And you guys pray for us as well. And we will see you soon. God bless.